Hello and welcome to another Zach Carnage video, and this time we have the third installment of the UK National Championship format duels. This time we're playing Sky Striker versus True Draco in line with popular request on a series of Facebook groups, and there will be future polls about the different decks that we'll be taking on for this video series. So let's get into the deck list to start off with. Here we have the Sky Striker list, very similar to the previous list, slightly lower on the trap count, and then we're running some extra stuff. So we've got the third Widow Anchor, and I think the Shark Cannon, I'm not sure if that was in the previous list as well. And a second multi-roll here as well, because it's really important for setting up that grind game. The side deck and the extra I think are pretty much identical to the original list. We are going to be updating each of these lists in line with some comments that we've received on the previous videos, but when we filmed this video, we hadn't received those beforehand. So moving on to the Draco list, this is pretty much the same as what it was before, very much inspired by the events of the Irish Open, playing an extra deck and the triple anti-spell and order in the main. So this is really good for combating the mirror match, as well as taking on the pendulum matchup. However, we're not sure if the deck is going to be changing in the upcoming format. We're expecting that the ban list will be coming in fairly soon, and it might well just completely destroy True Draco as a deck. But if it does hang around for the UK National Championship format, then it's interesting to see the kind of interactions that it would have with the Sky Striker build. So that's it for the deck list. Let's get on to the game. So kicking off game one, we're going to see True Draco take the start on the right hand side, opening up Duality into Heritage, Terraforming, and Upstart. Taking the Heritage off this, so he's probably got a Diagram then, given that he didn't want to go for the Terraforming. So we see Diagram come down, and a set card, Diagram activates to pop it. A preemptive Ash Blossom here, 2 more set and Desires comes out. So maybe the Ash Blossom should have been held there. The Heritage there, tributed for a Maiden, and then the second Heritage gets a draw and then activates to summon a Masterpiece from the hand, ending on set 3 there. So we see Impermanence come down, targeting the Masterpiece, stopping any disruption from that, because it is a monster spell Masterpiece. Ray is summoned, turned it into a Shizuku here, and that way getting the end phase search with it in 1 set. So searching for startup, not a fantastic hand for Sky Strikers again here. We'll see how things progress. So entering into the True Draco turn. Starting off by Diagram popping a Heritage there. And opening up, popping a Disciples, opening up access to a Heritage there. So Disciples, it's the Impermanence, which is changed once again, targeting the Masterpiece and stopping that set card from being played. Heritage draws 1, and Duality opens up access to a Diagram or a Maiden or an Apocalypse here. Taking the Diagram. So the new Diagram being played, popping a set card. And giving access to a second Masterpiece here. So basically setting up for some really big monsters, and then Desires comes down being Ash there. So Masterpiece hits over the Shizuku, unaffected by the attack reduction, and out comes Ray. And then a card is set, and Ray turns into Shizuku in the end phase in order to get off a free search for a startup, I believe, here. Because I haven't seen any spells yet during a Sky Striker turn. But that is all about to change. So in the standby phase, Anti-Spell comes down. Bit of an issue, given that there's no spell or trap removal in the hand. However, as we're going to be seeing, it's very popular. Flood did get released recently, which opens up some other options for removing spells and traps. So out comes Troymare Nightmare. Troymare Phoenix, or Nightmare Phoenix. Off the Ray there, discarding a startup to pop anti-spell. And the second startup in the hand will then be played in order to search through the deck. So pulling out a Hornet Bit. And then just considering the line of play to make here. So Dragon Shrine is coming down, putting a Diabolos in the grave, which will set it up for if a Ray returns to the field. However, there's not currently a way to put Ray on the field without any link monsters there. So Phoenix attacks into the Masterpiece, which will lose the battle, and will be taking some damage here. And then in the main phase 2, we have a Hornet token come out, turned into a Kagari. Kagari adding back the startup. And this means that we can then play the startup to get access to, we're just considering here, taking another Hornet Bit. And if Kagari dies, we're going to have access to the Ray during the opponent's turn, which will bring up the Diabolos. So getting that draw off the startup there, additional +1 because there are so many spells in the grave. Kagari is turned into a Shizuku, which will mean an end phase search. Masterpiece is used to pop it during the end phase. So out comes a Ray. And then play is passed there, I believe. So during Calum's turn, the first thing that he does is brings out Demise, which adds an Amano. So that will shut off the Ray, making it impossible to bring out Diabolos, which is a bit unfortunate. So punching over that with the Amano, then using the effect of Heritage for an additional summon. Oh no, sorry, the diagram pops the set card there, turning it into a True King's Return. Then Heritage is used to get the additional draw, then Heritage is used for the additional summon, so the Amano and the Heritage being traded out for a second monster spell immune Masterpiece there. So Rotor's Blade, and then there's a bit of a mistake here. So True King's Return is flipped up in order to summon the Majesty Maiden, and Ray is added off the Rotor. We believe that this is a mistake and it should have actually been played later on, because you will be seeing an illegal play coming up in the following turn, in which True King's Return should have been played a little bit differently. So Ray is summoned, and immediately turned into a Kagari with its effect, triggering Kagari's Chainlink 1 and Diabolos' Chainlink 2. I believe that the Masterpiece is going to be chained as Chainlink 3 here. Yeah, targeting the Kagari. So Diabolos comes out, and Kagari adds back the startup. Diabolos then punches over the Monster Spell Immune Masterpiece. Now remember, it's only on 2950, it is immune to that diagram there. And a bit low on extra deck at this point for Sky Strikers. So opting to not bring back the Ray when the Kagari was punched over at that point. So then passing turn, Calum enters the main phase and uses Return to bring back Masterpiece. So here's the mistake. What should have happened was Maiden should not have been brought back. Masterpiece should have been brought back in the end phase after it was punched over, which would allow Calum to go into Cypher and Dark Matter here, which will steal the game once he makes an additional Tribute Summon from the hand. So at this point there shouldn't be a second Maiden on the field if line of play was correct, but ultimately it shouldn't affect the game state. Sky Strikers were far too far behind at this point in order to make a significant comeback, and True Draco take game 1. Okay, so moving into game 2, we're seeing True Draco start again with a Mono, and then Pot of Duality coming down, revealing some very nice targets of Cherries and Order here. And I think Disciples is the third option, but maybe it's not the priority in Callum's mind at the moment. So he takes the order as it is, of course, a one-of. It's less likely that he's going to be drawing into it if he has further draw cards to play. Diagram here, and then Demise, drawing into 2. Then we had a little bit of confusion because he thought he'd use the effect of this diagram, so accidentally goes through a second diagram initially, but the first diagram is going to pop a set to search for, pop an Ash Blossom in hand in order to add a heritage, and then a second diagram is going to pop a heritage that is set in order to add, I think it's going to be a second heritage. Yep, second heritage here, which will allow the single draw, and then the tribute summon for an Ignis. So setting the remainder of his hand, resolving Demise, and adding back that Amano will end his first turn. And during the standby phase we don't see anything flipped up, but we know there's an order there. So the first play is trying to bait this out with a Widow Anchor targeting Ignis. He doesn't opt to chain the effect of Ignis here, so Typhoon comes down in a separate chain targeting Order. When Ignis is chained, then Ash Blossom is chained to that. Then we see multi-roll and a Startup Engage come down. Only one spell in the grave, so no draw yet. Adding a Ray here. Ray's normal summoned. And then we link summon into Kagari in order to add back the Startup. Play it again. So multi-roll has counted 2 so far, I believe. So adding an Afterburner here, which enables the removal of that Ignis, but it can't pop the back row yet. And then attacking for 18, switching into Shizuku, and in the end phase we're able to set up to 2. So setting, I believe it's a Startup and a Widow Anchor there, and then Shizuku's going to be able to search for another Startup because there isn't one in the grave when it activates. So in the opposing turn we see Amano come out again. Is then popped with Diagram immediately in order to add a True Draco Apocalypse. Oh no, it's going to be a True King's Return. So Demise played here, hit by an Ash Blossom unfortunately for Callum. And I believe play is passed at this point. Foolish Burial comes in, putting a Diabolos into the grave. One of the better options because it is more difficult for True Draco to get over, and that's followed by a Startup. Adding a Shark Cannon, because we know there's a True King's Return, so Shark Cannon is an option in order to remove the card there. So there are now 3 spells in the grave, so the set Startup Engage, which will be banished when it gets played, is able to add a Hornet. Just enabling setup for future plays there. Then just debating on which actions to take for the rest of the turn, so going through and punching for 15 and setting 2 here. Not rotating through Kagari. I think this is mostly to conserve resources because kind of expecting the game to grind out a little bit more now that multi-roll is available. So Callum opts to flip the True King's Return, and the Shark Cannon is chained to that. He then pops the True King's Return with Diagram, which is going to get rid of the Shizuku and add a Heritage. Ray is triggered to summon itself. And Disciples comes down. Rotating Ray into Kagari. Just because I'm wary of the Amano Iwato that he might have available. Of his Zerot here. So the Kagari is going to be Chainlink 1, Diablos Chainlink 2 summoning itself, and obviously in the previous chain the Heritage allowed for a draw. Sorry, the Disciples allowed for a draw. So Helm ending on set 2 and then the 2 spells there. So without taking any further actions, I go straight into the battle phase, attacking the Kagari. He then activates the True Draco Apocalypse, reducing the attacks of all of my monsters to half. I did forget that Ignis cannot attack at this point. And then when he uses the Apocalypse, it pops the set Widow Anchor, which was set with multi-roll, so ends up being banished. So the Ignis can't attack here, but Diablos and Kagari can. Both of them on half their current attack, as opposed to their original attack. So multi-roll is used to pop off the Ignis. It's just a weak body on the field at this point. And I want to get into a position where I have no monsters in my main monster zones, so that I can actually use them. But for some reason I elect to keep the Diablos here. Which I think was a bit of a mistake. I think I should have got rid of that. Perhaps he didn't have a card in hand at this point. So would have been more advantageous to take note of what he had available to him. So he pops the Apocalypse in order to get rid of Kagari, adding a Maiden. But at this point he's fairly low on resources. So he's going to rotate into a second field spell with Terraforming, popping another of his spells and traps. This time adding a Masterpiece, but at this stage he really doesn't have anything that he's able to play within his hand that's going to be able to push through the multi-roll repeated setup. So he decides to scoop at this point, and that's the end of Game 2. Now we decided not to play Game 3 at this stage. We thought we'd just give you an idea of the sort of interactions that you might be seeing. Thanks for watching this UK National Championship format video. Potentially True Draco will not be making it into the June season when we're expecting the UK National Championships to be held. However, we thought this would be an interesting duel for you guys to watch, and it's certainly something that was requested online. So, as always, if there's something that you want to see from the channel, let us know in the comment section down below. I'll be posting up polls within different Facebook groups trying to gauge interest in potential future matchups. We've had a couple of requests for things like a Trickstar and BA, so feel free to suggest things that you think would be popular during the UK Nats format, but which perhaps you haven't seen a lot of recently. We don't want to be putting up, duel videos that you would have seen a lot of beforehand, unless, of course, there's new support which is going to drastically change those individual matches. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment if there's anything you want to say, subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more content. Feel free to check out Top Deck, which is a series where I interview different players who have managed to top regional events or potentially other events that are out there. We get some insight into their deck building process, how the event ran, and why they went with particular ratios for their list. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.